about sovereignty and things like that, and understanding whether we, as people, are put down by the government, controlled and all that, manipulated, or whether we are empowered. Now, the lovely Sandy Adams came on the show the other day, and we were talking about her speech at Glastonbury, and everybody wanted to get her on the show, and we spoke to her, and she mentioned an outfit called ukcitizen.org. And as it happened, she rang me up yesterday and she said, you've really got to get the ladies from ukcitizen.org. And I said, okay, I'll wave my magic wand. And as so happened, the ladies from ukcitizen.org are here. I'm going to find out all about it. So can I welcome, first of all, we've got Jane. Hello, Jane.
Hi Richard, thanks for having us.
That's lovely to you. Now, you're not actually local, are you? Right, over in the States at the moment.
Yeah, I'm in Los Angeles, but I'm actually from Middlesbrough.
Yeah, we can hear that in your... It's not an American accent.
Great.
And Suzanne. Hello, Suzanne.
Hi, Richard.
How are you?
I'm all right, thank you.
You're up in Leeds, aren't you?
Yes, we live in Leeds, the lovely Leeds.
Lovely Leeds. And I'm down in the south. So it's nice to have sort of people spread out all over the place. So, ukcitizen.org, I think Jane is going to sort of introduce what it is and what it's about.
Sure. So UK Citizen was founded by 4 people back in early 2021. They all had legal backgrounds, and we actually came together originally to try and get ivermectin approved, and we were going to do that by trying to educate the people, really, first of all, even about its existence. And we realised very early on that the agenda that we were facing, which went much beyond ivermectin, but at its core we believe that, as we do now, that the power resides with the people. It's just most of the people don't realise that. And so we're still about that now. So we've had various initiatives since then. We have a group that we regularly write to our MPs. That's been ongoing for a couple of years. We're up to about letter 15B or C. We got involved with the criminal investigation with regards to the jab, and there's been lots of other initiatives, but more latterly, Suzanne and I felt that we can impact change most greatly at the local level, and we were already researching the UN Agenda 2030 and all of that, and Suzanne just decided to go and meet her council, and upon doing that, we realised that they probably didn't know as much as we did, and that, you know, they just were not aware of the other agenda, and that's kind of the origins of going local, and the pack that there's kind of lots of people have now seen is kind of made of 2 sections. The latter half is, you know, is the climate crisis real? Lots of research, but the front end, which I'll hand over to Suzanne, is really about a step-by-step guide of how you go, and first of all, how do you even meet your council, because the websites aren't always great, they're not always intuitive, it can be intimidating, people just don't know how to take that first step, and so that's what we decided to do, a step-by-step guide about reaching out to them and then providing information at the back of the pack for you to challenge. There's some legislation in there, there's other data from dissenting voices. But the key was, you know, how do you get to those local councillors? So I'll hand over to Suzanne, because I'm obviously not on the ground there, and she is the boots on the ground, and she's got that actual first-hand experience of speaking with councillors.
Yeah. So Suzanne, yeah, tell us, because if you know, I had no clue really. You go into the council where I live, and there's a desk. And now, I mean, there used to be a receptionist, but now it's just a security person. You've got to sort of either know where you're going or have an appointment. Everything's by appointment. You can't just sort of turn up and say, well, can I speak to Bob, please, from, you know, maintenance or something. So, yeah, do tell us.
Yeah, so I mean, Jane and I started to look at some of the UN agenda. The World Economic Forum Leeds is a pilot smart city. We've had that confirmed through a freedom of information request. We already knew it, but it's interesting to get that in writing from our local council. I wonder how many people know that in Leeds City Council area. Probably not many. So I already knew that, and then the whole 20-minute city neighbourhood came into, you know, with Oxford and what have you. And I was thinking, has Leeds got this same agenda, and it's not easy to find out. It turns out that there was some kind of public consultation last year, and then there was Mott MacDonald did a consultation paper on whether it would work, but hasn't really got any further than that. So not really knowing an awful lot. I actually have a friend who worked for the council for 30 years, and she said, well, what we need to do is go along to a meeting, which seems like a great idea, but which meeting do you go to? Bit more digging around, and we discovered that the executive board meeting was taking place about a week later, and the mention of 20-minute neighbourhoods. So we pounced on that one.
Yeah.
And we found all this information out by you can look on the council website for the calendar, and it tells you almost all council meetings the public can attend. There's one or two where it's perhaps a safeguarding issue or a personal finance matter, but all council meetings the public can go to. So we went along, and what we discovered was it wasn't only us that were a bit worried about this 20-minute neighbourhoods, but actually the leader of the opposition, which is Conservative. So we're a Labour council, but the leader of the opposition was concerned too. And had questioned the validity of the public consultation that's underway and how transparent it was going to be. So we ended up having a meeting with him. I emailed him afterwards and said, I was interested to hear what you had to say at the executive board meeting, and he agreed to a meeting with us, which was really quite enlightening because he was concerned himself that the usual checks and balances aren't really taking place, and he was having difficulty getting to the bottom of matters that concerned him as well. So that was kind of that, and then we decided, well, we've been to that meeting, we'll go to a local community committee meeting, because what's interesting about those is you can go along and you can ask questions.
Right.
And you can literally just turn up and ask a question. So I've asked a couple. You can just speak to the clerk and say, in this meeting I'd like to ask a question, and they'll allow you to do that. And you have 3 minutes. So I went with a friend of mine, principally because during 2020 there were planters that were placed in his estate that has absolutely caused chaos. So we went, and I said to him, you need to go and speak to these people about the planters that are causing, they've literally blocked the street. And so we did. And it turns out that a couple of the councillors aren't happy about it either. And they were only meant to be temporary, but guess what? How long's temporary?
Yeah.
So that was another interesting one. So, we're sort of starting to build a picture of what's going on, who does what. The community committee meetings, they have the officers attend, so they can answer questions. And as I say, we're just building a picture of who does what, who thinks what, and how do you navigate through to get to the people that you really need to speak to. So that's kind of the point that we're at now. We've got another meeting with the leader of the opposition on Tuesday, because we want to say, what do you think about what's going on? What do you think about, all this billions of pounds that must be spent, well, not billions, possibly it is billions here, that's being spent on all these cameras, the planters, for what? Is it really good for the people? I don't, it's, in my mind, it isn't. So that's kind of where we're at just now. And we're just trying to navigate, as I say, our way through.
What's the reason that they give? What do they say these planters are for and the cameras are all for?
It's a good question. We haven't quite got to the bottom of that yet.
Right.
So,
well, they've just all bought into carbon neutral, haven't they? The bottom line.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the issue. It's for me, the climate crisis is the new. It's a new mantra that's replaced safe and effective.
mm-hmm.
Right.
People just say it as if it's a given, and then actually it's not. It's because the dissenting voices once again have been silenced. So that's kind of what the front end of the pack is using the information that Suzanne's got and telling people how to go about, how do you find the calendar on the web. It sounds ridiculous. I look for the Constitution. I mean, most people don't realise that every council has one. They do. Trying to find it for Leeds was not easy. So, we've actually given step-by-step guides about how how you find the Constitution and make yourselves familiar with the Constitution. It was a great find, the Constitution, actually.
So what does the Constitution give you then? Because your local
Well,
Constitution, the council's Constitution.
One of the things it gives us, which I'm a solicitor. I haven't practiced since 2014, since I moved to Los Angeles, but I've got a legal background. And at UKC, in almost every MP letter that we write, we bang on about the Nolan Principles. You know, we always remind MPs about the 7 principles of public life, because they're breaching them all the time. But I say to Suzanne, well, we put this in and we should keep doing it, but it's just a code at the end of the day. It's just in a minister's code, so, you know, that counts for nothing. But actually, in every constitution I've looked at now, and I know that it will be in everyone, and I'll tell you why I know in a second, those 7 principles of public life are in there. So therefore, they're in legislation, which is massive. They carry weight now.
Right.
So they're in the Constitution. The reason they're in...
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. 7 principles of life that's in their Constitution.
Yeah.
That
So
they have to abide by.
Yeah, and the
And
reason
and if they don't abide by that, then you can come crashing down and say, hold on a second.
Yes, and before, we've tried that before, but, you know, it was just contained in the minister's code, so it doesn't carry any legal weight. But the reason it's in the Constitution is we happen to come across something called the Localism Act 2011, which is just golden, because you know, that says that they have to have in their Constitution, they have to abide by they don't call them normal principles, they don't even say the 7 principles of public life, but when you look at the clause, it is the 7 principles. It's things like openness, integrity, transparency, leadership, honesty, can't remember the other 2. So they're in there, so it's really important that people familiarise themselves with the Constitution. We've summarised the Localism Act, because it gives power to people like Suzanne who are approaching their council, legal weight to push back. So, for example, the Localism Act includes a common law principle called predetermination, which means that you shouldn't come to a decision with a closed mind. Well, you know, in my opinion, they've all come to a decision with a closed mind because they've just heard one side of the climate debate.
Right.
So that's also in the pack. So there's the practical steps that Suzanne's talking about, of how to actually just get through the door and have the confidence. And then there's the help to challenge. There's the kind of, well, you know, for example, we've got in there some questions for freedom of information. We want to see what have you based your policy making on? Because we know what they've based it on. They've based it on one side of the debate and not the other. So the pack's in 2 parts, really.
So we should explain, just for those people who haven't quite caught on, that you've got this pack, and
Yes.
they can get it from the website, presumably.
Yes.
Yes. So this is a pack. This is like what would you call it? This is a pack of attack that you can take. And operate the guidance that you've got there to go to your council, and you're armed with solid information. Yeah, I just thought I'd get that just in case that wasn't clear.
Yeah, can I also say what Jane actually summarised a lot of the key documents, like the Living in the 1.5 degree world and Absolute Zero, which was written by, I think that one was the UK Fires, isn't it? So what's useful about that is that people don't have to read the whole document. It's just into, you know, a couple of pages, and you've got the gist of what it's actually about and the key points that it makes. Yeah.
One of the things that prompted Suzanne and I, well, there was quite a few things. One, that Suzanne actually, you know, because she's brilliant, she's always speaking at rallies and, you know, getting in there, which is great, and it's frustrating for me. I do that here with assembly people here, but obviously I can't be on the ground in Middlesbrough. But so, you know, that one of the things that prompted us to do it was, you know, how do we get beyond the freedom space, the echo chamber? You know, because UKC is about empowering. It's not about being a member of UKC. What we want is to get our information out there and people on the ground to pick it up and run with it. That's what we need. And one of those 2 documents that Suzanne referred to are critical, I think, because you can see in writing that the plan, and the plan is for nobody to be able to fly, well, not us, or fly once every 3 years per person, short haul flight, which is less than 1,500 kilometres return, to only have 3 new items of clothing a year, and to eat
I didn't know that. 3 new items of clothing.
Yeah, and the power of those 2 documents is that they're not, I mean, they are UN agenda documents, obviously, but they are documents that apply to the UK, that were written in the UK. I mean, the C40 cities that Suzanne refers to, Sadiq Khan is the chair of that organisation. So we felt that people would relate to that. You can see it, it's not conspiracy, it's written down in 2 separate documents, so that's why we thought they were pretty powerful. And we're going to keep adding to the pack the more information we get, but
those are 2 good starting points, aren't they? And I think if people realise that that the plan is for us not to fly, you know, we're talking even about having no shipping coming into the UK, so, you know, no meat, no dairy.
So the next thing that we're doing actually is I just worked on it yesterday, we're looking into all the trade associations, because like how many butchers know that by 2030 you're not supposed to be eating red meat? I think they might have something to say about that.
Absolutely.
You know, how many retailers know that you can only, you know, there's 3 new items of clothing by 2030? So we're starting to share this pack with not just the general public, trying to get it into their hands. The aviation industry, you know, that's dead if nobody's allowed to fly. No privately owned vehicles is another one. So, you know, car manufacturers. We're just trying to get the information
Well, you would imagine that, I mean, business is obviously the thing that keeps people going and having work and earning money and buying stuff, and this is something that's been going on, really, trade and barter and all of that for forever, pretty much. And it seems that what they're saying is, with 3 items of clothes, I mean, the clothing industry would just collapse. Who's going to be, you know, it's like having, I mean, everything's built with obsolescence in it. Well, if you're not buying anything at all, if you buy your one fridge and it works forever, the fridge industry falls apart. So you can understand there's a certain element of having something that sort of falls apart over time, even if it's just, it rusts. But if you're only permitted to buy a number of items and you're not allowed to eat certain meat, and all these different trades would just vanish, what are they going to do with all the people?
Yeah, and we were very confident, and I think we'll be proved right, that many of the councillors are not aware of this.
Yeah.
They're not. Definitely not.
Because I mean, you can't imagine that they've all signed up to it to think, well, okay, we'll bring all this lot in, everyone's going to be angry, and then they'll be after us with rope when a noose on the end of it. I mean, you know, you've got to, if they're aware of it, then then it seems to me they're very brave, because there's going to be a hell of a lot of angry people who would be saying, hang on a minute, I want that new dress. Why can't I buy that new dress?
Exactly.
I mean, how many Londoners do you think know that they're a C40 city? I mean, actually, Los Angeles is as well, and anecdotally, I can tell you nobody here does. I mentioned it to them, and it's like, they don't know what you're talking about. And that's a problem. That's a big problem, and that's a problem under the legislation as well. Because the Localism Act demands transparency. You know, there's stuff in there about, you know, public consultation, community engagement. The 7 principles are in there. So we've just got to start using their rules against them. That's what we've got to start doing. And then hopefully it doesn't get to that point. Hopefully we don't have to, you know, call them out on it. Hopefully they'll start engaging. And I think the important thing for us is, what we're hoping is that people who do go and use the pack, and obviously, you know, it's had over 30,000 views, even if a 10th of those are people going off and practically doing something, that's brilliant. Yeah. But what we hope is they'll come back and tell us their experiences, be it positive or negative, because it will just help us shape the next version of the pack. The front end will change if we know that one path to get to your councillor is not working where another one seems to. We can constantly revise that pack, but that only works if we get the information. No, I mean, in the end of the day, we want people going out and using it. If they don't come back to us, that's fine if they're getting out and engaging, but ideally we'd love to know what works and what doesn't. And we're working really closely with 7 concerned citizens in Torbay who are also engaging with their council. So we've got Suzanne in Leeds, and we've got that we actually really know blow for blow what's happening, and hopefully we can add in a few more councils as we go along.
Yeah.
So UK Citizen Dog, it's not a sort of place where people just get together and have a couple of beers and a moan about stuff. This is more about getting, well, you know, lots of sort of groups where they, yeah, which is nice,
I love
you
to
know.
do that.
But it is such a serious situation. So because I don't know too much about what you do, so really the central focus is that it's about grassroots people getting up, doing something, they're concerned, they learn what's coming and thinking, we don't want this, so what do we do? And the first port of call, I suppose, is talking to the people in your community who are your leaders, the councillors, and say, are you aware of what's going on? If you don't know, please read this, because it's going to affect you just as much as it's going to affect me. And if you don't know, then once you know that, tell your bosses. And it's that business about trying to break through that wall, because they may not know straight away quite what you and think you're talking rubbish. So it's getting them motivated, so that we go upwards, up the pyramid, and say then eventually to the next tier, you know, this is not what we want. You may not know that. We don't want it, thanks. And we don't want to be violent on the street and protesting in huge ways. But if you know, basically, if push comes to shove, we are prepared. We're sharpening the pitchforks.
Absolutely, and I think the councillors, you know, people are so busy that they take the path of least resistance. So if something's meant to happen, you know, oh, we're doing this today, then they will do it. What we need is people calmly going to the councillors and saying, have you seen this? And because that then gives the councillors the power then to say to the officers, you know, my ward member has raised this as an issue, you know, what do you think about it? And, you know, how does this fit with, you know, and just raising those concerns, because if enough people go to the councils and start telling them what's going on, this is the beauty of the community committee meetings. You know, we're not there to go and get angry particularly. What we're there for, or what I would like to think that people would do, is to go and calmly raise these matters. So that, because what we've worked out, and I don't think this is set down in law as such, but what we've realised is that if you, as a member of the public, speak to your councillor and you raise an issue, that councillor then goes to the relevant department and says, my ward members has raised this comment. The officers then have to respond directly back to the member of the public. And we've used this to our advantage. A friend of mine went to her local community committee meeting, asked the councillors about the Leeds local plan scoping document. The councillors knew nothing about it. That actual consultation's finished now, but at that time they knew nothing about it. Went to the planners and said, what's all this about? And the head planner, has now come back to my friend and said, we need to have a meeting. So that's now got us into, we haven't had the meeting yet, that's at the end of April, but that's now got us a conversation directly with the planners. Now I think that's really powerful, to actually speak to the people who are rolling out this stuff, that they perhaps are doing it in all, you know, good faith. For example, at the a committee meeting that I went to, the guy from the transport department admitted that what they were being, you know, the stuff that's coming down from government is really quite complicated, and said, I don't know how the public are meant to understand this when we're struggling to. So, you know, it's about, I don't know, it's about sort of just making people think, those people in those positions think very carefully about what they're doing and whether it's the right thing for this location.
I think the power of the officers as well is that it's not a political position. So the officers are supposed to, if it's the right thing, if it's not the right thing to do, even if it's not what the councillors want to hear, they're supposed to say no. So if you can get some officers to say no, and I genuinely believe, like I said, it's replaced safe and effective. People believe it because it's said over and over and over again. And while these councillors and officers are no different, they've never even considered the other side. Most of them have never been exposed to it. So it's about offering it. I guess we've got other plans. We're going to do a going local central bank digital currencies. We're going to do a going local digital IDs. We're going to come up with the same situation there. The public's always given one side, the side that leads to control. They're not giving the opposite. And so the packs do two things, hopefully. Educate people who perhaps have never thought about it, because most people within the freedom movement know that the climate crisis is just another it's just another means of getting into control. But we need to that's still a small group. I know it can feel massive when you're in it, there's the only people you talk to, but it's actually still small. And so firstly, it's educating the people, and through that knowledge, empowering them to go and frankly educate the councillors. Because
so you said something very interesting there, that they're repeating, they're repeating the lie so many times, and they just get on with it, safe and effective and all of those things. And I think this is something that we can then utilise, and it's easier for the people because there's more of them. So in other words, if you only have to do it once yourself, but if you've got 50,000 people in your community, that's 50,000 people just doing it once, nipping into the council and saying, oh, can I just ask you why you're doing this? 50,000 people going into the council asking, and they go, bloody hell, there's a lot of people coming in asking us why, firstly, and also saying, we'd rather not, thanks very much.
yeah,
Exactly.
And they can be incredibly polite and nice and jolly about it, and saying, it's awfully nice of you to offer these horrible tyrannical things, but to be honest with you, I'd rather not. But that's the thing. I think sometimes that people feel, blimey, it's all on me, and I often get that feeling running the YouTube channel. You think, God, if I don't get the message out, it's all on me. But it is down to people only have to do these things once.
Mm-hmm.
As long as everyone's doing it once.
Exactly.
You've got that.
Yeah, we've said that so many times. It's better to have 5,000 people doing one thing than one person trying to do 5,000 things.
Yeah.
And
that was the whole thing.
powerful.
That was the whole thing behind our MP letters, wasn't it? I mean, people, you would have your time, Jane, and I'm like, okay. Well, firstly, I quite like doing them, and in drafting them, I learn a lot. But again, we don't know what happens off the back of that. We don't know. If somebody's writing for an MP for the first time ever, to me, that's a win. Because they're engaging. And it's the same with these, with these letters. We don't know where they end up, and hopefully they're changed slightly, and people are beginning to engage. But if one MP starts getting, 40 or 50 letters that's slightly different on the same subject, they may stop and go, well, hang on a minute.
And in theory, they're supposed to, aren't? I mean, a lot of my viewers have sent me copies of letters that they've written to their MP about the medical intervention that we've had recently, and they've asked them, and what I've read back from what the responses they get from all different parts of the country is pretty much the same script, saying, we believe in it, the government are absolutely satisfied, it's safe and effective. Same words, almost as if it's been dictated from above. But you think that if they get, like you say, 50 letters on the one subject, and surely that MP, if he's worth his salt, if he's worth the money, if he's worth retaining in the next election, he should be going back to the Parliament and saying, do you know what? I've had so many people slightly concerned about this, just like Andrew Bridgen was. Funny that. I wonder why that is. So that at least his report, rather than just going, there's nothing to see here, nothing to see, nothing to worry about.
You'd like to think that that's exactly what they would do. Whether they do or not, I'm not sure. But,
yeah, we see that all the time, Richard. We get, we just had it last week. Actually, we were writing on a different subject, the treaty and the IHR, and we've got 4 that are just standard responses.
Yeah.
But it's also, it's not just. I mean, it's not just about the response. It's about, because I have to believe at some point there's some accountability for this. So we know that we shared all of this information with these MPs, so they can't say they didn't know. Similarly, if it gets to it with councillors, we know we're sharing all this information. But beyond that, it's just about, maybe that's a trigger in somebody that gets them to be active. Maybe somebody out there is now going, well, actually, I'm going to stand as an independent. You don't know what that leads to. Somebody within our group asked us the other day, well, how do we UKC assess our progress? And I don't think we can, because once that pack goes out, it's for the people. We just want to get out there as far and wide as we can. We don't know what impact that has, and that doesn't matter. We're doing what we set out to do, which is provide information to people, knowledge, to provide them with empower them. Yeah. And I guess the thing we should say is we are also, if people read the pack and they've got questions or they don't understand something, or for example they've got so far with the council and they need help with the strategy of the next stage, we can help with that.
Yeah. Because we're all learning, aren't we? And councils, all different councils are different. You know, town councils are different to city councils. That's another thing in itself that's so complicated, so many layers to local bureaucracy, or to local governance, that it's very difficult to, there isn't one size fits all. I mean, at the end of the day, when we were in lockdown, we all knew that we were in lockdown. It was a national, everybody was in the same boat, but this is all very slightly different. 15, 20-minute cities might not be known as 20-minute cities everywhere. They're different. Even the I had to laugh at one of the meetings I was at. The transport guy said, "Oh, I think we might have to rename the 20-minute neighbourhoods because they're getting a lot of bad press."
Yeah.
So watch out for that one. It's just it's just the same thing.
The transparency piece with the principles of public life. It's like, how many people? We don't we think that every single council's announced a climate emergency. We're pretty right at that, aren't we? I think if you went to most people at home and asked them, they wouldn't have any idea that they were living within a council that had declared a climate emergency. How is that not shared?
Yeah, that's very true.
It's insane.
We are, the whole situation is insane. And what is most frightening is, here we are, we're talking, and we know, and in a way I get the sense that a lot of people are talking, but then I'll walk down the street and you'll say something to someone and they're absolutely no knowledge whatsoever, not inquisitive, they're busy people, they've got their lives, and then there's this sort of weird something, oh, I don't want to know about that, that's, and there's the head in the sand business, that somehow, until it's too late, until they can't actually pull their head out of the sand and look around and go, oh golly, look at those walls. That's what it's trying to reach people, which is the hard bit. But if you've got, and what you ladies are doing here by putting a pack, and even if people just download it or go to the website and they just have a chat about it and say, is this, and they take one little piece of that and they mention it to somebody else and say, do you know what, I'm going to go down the blooming council and I'll have 5 minutes with somebody about that. Yeah. And, every little bit to that, to push the snowball on its route, has got to be good.
I think we have to remember as well that, for a long time, councils have had their meetings and not very many people have taken very much attention. People are not normally, I was one of those people just getting on with my life, paying my council tax, and, and it seems okay, but actually I think there are more people starting to go and hear what the councils are doing and what do they discuss? How does it carry? I can recommend going and even just for half an hour go to your full council meeting and just see what happens there. It's very empowering, I think, even to just go and find those things out. Just go along to a meeting and don't say anything. Just sit and hear, listen to what they're doing, listen to what's discussed.
Ultimately, ignorance is our own individual problem. I get people have got really busy lives, and personally, I think that's by design. Both parents working, etc. But we're at a point now where people need to grasp hold of the knowledge because the situation's dire. We did talk about your point about repeating the mantra, like I said about the safe and effective. We have talked about, because we've got links to other groups, all of us, so we have talked about picking one thing and coming up with a very simple message and just blasting that across a lot of groups all at once. But again, you need to get outside of the freedom space. It's why I wanted to focus on the flying, because we know how many people anecdotally got jabbed to go on holiday. So we know that's important to people. So, how do you get beyond that freedom space and grab somebody's attention? And I think that's one of the ways. Well, you won't be going on holiday.
Well, if you were in a car park, let's say, and you came back to your car from shopping, and there was just a piece of A5 paper that said no holidays from 2030. You go, what? I think sometimes the only way to get to people is what's going to affect them personally.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good idea, Suzanne, because we've got, you might want to talk about Brett and the yellow boards, but he could just do a blast. That's a really great idea about
And actually, I was at my stand in the park this morning. Well, it wasn't actually; it was sitting in the cafe. But because stand in the park seems to have, I'm never early enough to stand in the park. It's 10 o'clock's too early for me.
Sleep in the pub would be the next one.
Well, there's a lot of sit in the pub, but we're supporting a local cafe.
Excellent.
Independent. So,
Yes.
but we were saying, about we do a lot of outreach. A lot of the stand in the park people do outreach. So we'll go and hand out leaflets and the light paper. But then it's what do you do after that? I think you're right. I think that's a great idea about go and leaflet in a car park. I mean, I stood for Freedom Alliance last year, and we did a lot of that as well. When I don't know whether you're allowed to or not, but we did. Yeah, I think, and as Jane said, Brett, who I think got in touch with you about UK Citizen. He does the yellow boards in.
Yes, that's right. He did, yeah.
Yeah, and he actually has he set up a little channel on Telegram where people can download Freedom Media stuff that that's just for free. He designs it and you can download it. So I can put people in touch with him for that. But I think that's a great idea. Yeah, you could just have no more holidays from 2030, and people be like, "What do you mean?"
I see how it all works.
And the thing is,
See how it all works now.
If we could do that, if we had yellow bars, not just in Basingstoke, but
We did it all over. Yeah.
it would be
Lights
great.
and shadows,
It'd be great.
lights and
I mean,
shadows.
I was at my eldest son actually was fighting in his first amateur MMA fight in Barnsley last night, and I was saying to my husband as we were sat there, there's a lot of men here, a lot of young lads who I think if you said to them, you can't have any meat anymore, that's what my son, that's what he eats. Majority of the time he trains really hard and that's what he has. But if you told those 2,000 young men that they couldn't have any more meat, I think they might be a little bit cross about that.
Absolutely. I mean, and the thing is, one of the things I've learned from doing corporate videos in the past and bits where I was working for advertisers and things is you just got to keep it big, bold, but very simple.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people will sort of go, oh, I'll put all this explanation on, and then there are people.
Yes.
But if you just say you've got no more holidays in 2030, or
Yeah, exactly.
only 3 items of clothes in 7 years, what?
Yeah.
So what? And just a simple link,
Yeah.
to a web page, and they
Yeah.
go, bloody hell.
Yeah, I think you're right there.
Something like that. And I'm sure the listeners, now, or the viewers rather, they're likely to come up with all sorts of exciting slogans in the comments. And that's
Right.
another thing that we can utilise is that there's lots of brains who,
Yes.
they may not be good at say, confrontation, because I know my girlfriend's not very good at confrontation, but she might just sort of come up with, little ideas, snappy little ideas. And so there's people out there who I'm sure can contribute. Do you have a forum or anything on your webpage so that people can just, randomly chuck stuff?
People are very very welcome to email us with their ideas, absolutely. So that'd be freedom@ukcitizen.org. So we monitor that all the time. We don't have a forum so much because
I'll
that
just show you
seems
a
like
website.
something else to
So police,
something else to manage. So if somebody wants to take over a forum and has moderator skills, then please do let us know. But yeah, so
Where do we find the pack? I'm just looking to see.
going local.
Going
The
local.
far left one
Oh,
there.
here we go. The first one
Maybe
you
you're
come
far
to.
right, I'm not sure.
Oh,
Oh,
that's no good, is it?
no way!
I'll come back off that. Oh, let me try it again. It might be. Here we go.
There
It
you
might. It's because my internet's being utilised talking to you guys, I think. So it's probably just went. Oh, I can't find it.
Can't
Here
do
we
that.
go. For the people going local,
Yeah, and if you scroll down, that's the full pack
and then we just
of
download
everything.
it.
Yeah, you can download it, and then there's sections that you can download as well. I don't know why it's. Oh, if you click through that one, and then scroll down,
Here we go.
you've got the individual sections. So you might not want to, because there's about 200 pages in that. But you can just, you could just download section 1 and have a read, and then on to the next one.
And there's 200 pages, Richard, because what I cannot take credit for any of that. I am so bad with IT. Suzanne did a superb job with putting that together. But it's 200 pages, not because we wrote 200 pages, because actually we stopped. We decided that probably less was more. That's why we can add to it. We just focused on those 2 documents that we talked about. We did a quick UN timeline, But it's so long is because embedded within that, if people want to look at the entire reports, they can. They're in
Oh, I
there.
see.
But also there's a summary. So that's why it's so long. It's not like you've got to read through 200 pages to understand what to do with your council.
But the great thing is you're adding to it, so people can come back in a month's time or 2 months' time, and there'll be potentially more ammo.
things.
Yeah.
More ammunition, exactly. That's it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And that's the thing, Richard. Also, there'll definitely be more ammunition because there's lots of other things that we could put in there in terms of the UN and the WAF and even the World Health Organization. They're all linked. But if we get the feedback from people who've got to see the councils, the front end might change as well.
Yeah.
Start understanding that actually, this has worked in this council. You might want to try it. We can only change that from understanding people's experiences.
And
And also,
really,
we want to give success. We want to give, for example, one of our group, one of our core members, she's already had somebody come back, a councillor come back and said, I want to hear more, which is great.
yeah.
That's a starting point.
Yeah, and I guess if there's, I'm again just thinking on my feet, if there's a number of you and you get the councillor into, like a cafe or somewhere, nice public space, and you can have a chat, and there's 3 or 4 of you talking, it adds a little bit more legitimacy that it's not just one person, but you're using the ammo that you've got from your pack. So they get a sense that the community, even if it's only represented by 4 friends, that the community are saying, actually, do you know what, this is this. And that sort of all sparks brain. What is it when you do not brainwashing? What's the other
Brainstorming.
Brainstorming.
Another one.
Last one. You don't want the brainwashing.
No.
Yeah, the good one. And also I gather that you really and truly people can join up, but you want people who are going to be active and get on and do stuff.
Yeah, and we do invite people. I've just changed the website today actually, so if you click on the joiners, it will take you, if you want to do that actually, Richard, and then people can see.
Whack it on the screen, bear with me. Here we go, hang on, go back to
So, there should be, you go back to the home page, I think. And then scroll it on slightly.
to join us.
Yeah, so you click join us, and then now it just explains pretty much what we're about. There's a few other groups that we are less active, but that kind of just explains how to join and what to expect. So, we don't want people to feel overwhelmed. News and chat can be a bit overwhelming at times. I can go away and come back half an hour and there's 150 messages, which I haven't got time to read really. But so if people can join and do as much, if they just want to share information, then I would suggest going to news and chat, and you can have a chat, and that's the forum for that. But if you want to get active, we really do want people to get active. Come in and join the emailing group, join the Going Local group. And we're also looking for people who are perhaps thinking, well, actually, I've got a few skills in those areas. We've had a couple of people with a legal background join, which is brilliant because it means that we've got 2 other people who can review legislation. Or if you're a scientist and you've got your own views on the climate, whatever it is, then just let us know when you join. Those are the people we need.
Yeah, it's just vital when the news and chat is exactly the forum. It's just that share news, chat. But when we get to our project groups, it's just vital that we maintain the integrity of them, because there's not a lot of us, and if you've got to troll through a particular channel to find the last thing that's of substantive value, it just takes up so much time. So we really just try to encourage people that really want to contribute and to jump into their projects. And it's fine if you don't. I mean, the Going Local's a prime example. In that group, we want people who come in with ideas about what we should add, reviewing something that we should add, coming back and feeding back on a meeting so we can add it. But if what you want to do is get that pack out to your community, that's invaluable, that's great. Don't feel pressured, but just don't come in the group. Know that we will get that information to you, and then we'll leave it to you to get it out into the community. And researchers, it'd be great if we could, we know there's so much. Well, first of all, we don't know what we don't know, but there's about, I don't know, I think 9 million statutes or something ridiculous. That in itself is just telling you. this is just by design and madness. But there's lots of, we've got a whole list of things that we still want to review, because we're not just doing the climate crisis. We're going to look at digital IDs. We're going to look at central bank, other things, AI, human, all of them.
Yeah.
But we just need more people who like researching, and then we can get through. If you think we're up against organisations like the WEF, you just need to go on their website and see, the enormity. So the more people that we've got who are keen to research, and not just legislation. I mean, to get our heads around the C40 cities, the UK fires document, and the what was the other one? The Arab document, the two that we've got in there. It takes hours and hours and hours.
The thing is, though, what you're about is empowering people, giving them that information. So it may seem like it's really, really complicated if you've got to sort of go through all those documents that you were saying about, the legislation things and what all the stuff that the WEF and all of that are thrusting down. But the essence is that you don't necessarily, there'll be people out there who can do that and just think, oh yeah, that's easy. And there'll be some people who just will be able to say, do you know what, I can't do any of that, but what I can do is put a leaflet on a car,
Exactly.
or I can talk to somebody down the pub and persuade them, to use more cash or whatever it is. But so people can get involved. It seems to me, having spoken to you, lovely ladies, that on any level.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. I think your idea of the simple leaflets is a really good one, and maybe that's something we should
Yeah.
we should
And if
we
we
should
could
do.
get people from each area of the country reaching out and saying, we can do that, we can produce it, we can produce the content. We need the people to get out there.
I'll invoice you that idea then a little bit later.
All volunteers, Richard, all volunteers.
Absolutely, that's what it's all about. It's been brilliant talking to you. It really sounds like people can get involved. It's right across the country, presumably. Everyone's got a council somewhere. They can stride in. They can look at your pack. They can work out what's going to be good for them. If they've got ideas, they can approach you with them and put them forward. They can use their skills, or they can learn new skills. And instead of having an extra pint down the pub, they could actually do something to help the country.